Yesterday, I would say, is a tale of two campaigns. Kamala Harris filled up two arenas in North Carolina. She's competent, she's sane, she's thoughtful, she's presidential. Contrasting that, we had Hannibal Lecter that sounds like a mental patient escapee running around Arizona saying a bunch of crazy stuff. But first, let me play this clip from Kamala Harris. I think she is so good at this, and she has been one of the most underestimated presidential candidates we've ever had.
So North Carolina, 2 nights ago, Donald Trump and I had our debate. You watched it? You watched it? And look, I believe we owe it to have another debate. Right? We owe it to the voters. Because here's the thing, in this election, what's at stake could not be more important. On Tuesday night, I talked about issues that I know matter to the families across America, like bringing down the cost of living, investing in America's small businesses, protecting reproductive freedom, and keeping our nation safe and secure. But that's not what we heard from Donald Trump. Instead, and I called it at the beginning of the debate, it was the same old show. Same old tired playbook we've heard for years, with no plan for how he would address the needs of the American people. Well, folks, look, it's time to turn the page.
I mean, she's getting so good at this. She's hitting her stride. And when you hear her talk about reproductive rights in particular, you hear the audience really, really erupt. And you and I were talking about this yesterday. We always worry about secret, which is code for humiliated Trump voters.
Right.
That are too embarrassed to admit to pollsters that they're going to vote for him for the third time. I think there are a lot of secret female voters that have voted for Donald Trump the last 2 times, but after Roe was overturned, that was it, that they are going to pull out for Kamala Harris.
I look at her at these rallies and I think she's talented and she's smart. We met her in person. She is engaging. She is charismatic. She is capable. What she did at that debate was expose him for the tiny little wannabe autocrat that he is. And I think the enthusiasm shows that more people are in our camp than their camp. And when you talk about reproductive freedom, I agree with you. Women do not want politicians in their doctor's offices. And I think I have a daughter, so reproductive rights are important to me, but I also have 2 sons. So reproductive rights are important to me for them too, because they will at some point maybe decide to have children. What if their wives bleed out in the parking lot while they're pregnant? This is an issue that affects everybody. And for someone to be flip-flopping and taking pride in overturning 180 million women's rights cannot be trusted, full stop.
And Kamala has picked up on this, and her campaign has released a new ad using Trump's words. Kylie, play the clip.
I want to turn to the issue of abortion.
For 52 years, they've been trying to get Roe v. Wade into the states. I did a great service in doing it. It took courage to do it. And the Supreme Court had great courage in doing it.
I have talked with women around our country. You want to talk about this is what people wanted? Pregnant women who want to carry a pregnancy to term, suffering from a miscarriage, being denied care in an emergency room because the healthcare providers are afraid they might go to jail, and she's bleeding out in a car in the parking lot. She didn't want that. Her husband didn't want that. A 12 or 13-year-old survivor of incest being forced to carry a pregnancy to term. They don't want that. I think the American people believe that certain freedoms, in particular the freedom to make decisions about one's own body, should not be made by the government. I'm Kamala Harris, and I approve this message.
Everything that Kamala Harris says is playing out in red states, and we know this because we live in one. And also very underreported in red states are OBGYNs that are fleeing the state so that they can go practice medicine without being regulated by a bunch of Christian nationalists and the threat of going to prison. And you have on the right, the MAGA people, they would prefer to believe lies, that the doctors that they trust when they have a heart attack or they have a stroke or they have some disease, that they want to cure them and elongate their lives, lengthen their lives. They want to believe that the same body of professionals is murdering babies in hospitals. It is blatantly false. And so the only way Trump can contrast to the reality of what the Kamala Harris presidency would be, which is really helping real people solve real problems, is to tell outlandish, far-right conspiracy theories. And again, so much of this public has been bred and indoctrinated in these mega churches for years on this issue of abortion, because the people who overturned Roe started decades ago and passed the torch from administration to administration. And Roe is the tip of the iceberg for these people. They will not stop at Roe. They're coming for birth control. They're coming for IVF. They're coming after that for probably women having jobs, etc. And that is not hyperbolic. They tell you what they want, and they even wrote it down in Project 2025.
Look at how they vote on these matters. After the Alabama Supreme Court case outlawed IVF or made it very difficult for IVF to survive, the Republicans voted unanimously not to codify the bill by the Democrats to protect IVF rights. They are arguing about the use of mifepristone in Congress. Every Republican is voting against it. So if you don't think they're coming after IVF and contraception, go look at how your Republican representatives voted on bills brought by Democrats to protect these rights. And it is absolutely Project 2025 laid out all over the Republican agenda.
And we can just look at everybody that Trump surrounds himself with.
That's right.
These are the craziest crazies from crazy town, and he is surrounded by them. This is a man, the final days of his presidency, when he was planning his little coup d'etat, was hanging out with Mike Lindell, the My Pillow guy, walked into the Oval Office every day, and I don't know if they played patty cake or what, but these are not serious people. These are very unserious people that are seeking very serious positions in this really bizarre game of control where they want to control women. And I'll leave that up to the psychiatrist to figure out what their mothers did to them in their childhood, but it cannot continue into our lives. But in contrasting all of the solutions, pragmatism, intelligence, and poise that Kamala Harris has, let me play for you while at the same time she's talking about these serious issues, filling up arenas in North Carolina, and everybody's cheering, applauding, grateful to have such a competent candidate. Here's what the other side is offering on the other side of the ticket. Here's a clip from Trump's rally in Arizona.
There's a place called Springfield, Ohio, that you've been reading about. 20,000 illegal Haitian immigrants have descended upon the town of 58,000 people, destroying their entire way of life. This was a beautiful community, and now it's horrible what's happened. Enrollment on the state's Medicaid and food assistance programs have soared. Motor vehicle accidents have skyrocketed. Recording of 911 calls even show residents are reporting that the migrants are walking off with the town's geese. They're taking the geese. You know where the geese are? In the park, in the lake. And even walking off with their pets. My dog's been taken. My dog's been stolen. This can only happen. These people are the worst.
No, Donovan Lecter, you're the worst.
Yes.
And your supporters are the worst. There is no geese kidnapping issue in the United States of America. You're a maniac that needs to be institutionalized in a straitjacket in a padded cell. It is alarming, the intellectual deficit that exists in MAGA supporters, that they hear that and they think, yep, that's it. That's the problem in America. The geese abductions and the dog and cat abductions. If you were listening to Donald Trump, you would think that as an immigrant who is fleeing really horrible conditions, comes to this country to find a job, that we're like, hello, welcome to the United States of America. We have some fried geese tacos over here and some dog nuggets and some cat tacos. After you do that, we're happy to execute your baby. I mean, come on. None of this stuff is happening. None of it is happening. And yet they want to believe these lies because they want to hate a unified enemy. This is fascism. This is a play out of Hitler's playbook, but they're too intellectually inept to realize what's happening. And I don't know that these people have ever read a history book, but more insidious, they want it. They want an authoritarian ruler. They want an authoritarian leader. And I want to remind you, Hitler was popular. There were supporters of him. He had a movement behind him. That's why this is so scary.
The outrageousness of his remarks, the fact that he was fact-checked during the debate regarding his Haitian immigrants are eating cats and dogs. Now he's doubled down on the geese. The mayor of Springfield, Ohio said, this is not happening. The Republican governor of the state of Ohio said, this is not happening. There have been bomb threats. 2 schools had to be evacuated subsequent to the debate. City halls had to be evacuated. Haitian immigrants that are here legally are hiding because of the terrorism executed by these MAGA people. They love the craven nature and the vile comments. And the question you have to ask yourself is, do you want someone like that in the White House that stokes fear, that stokes violence, that stokes threat? And I mean, obviously, the clear answer for me is no. Like you said, we'll get with everybody's psychiatrist later on why they want this for this country, because it's jaw-dropping.
Well, I think that his followers have been primed their entire lives to a very binary choice in the world. There's no critical thought. There's no nuanced thinking. It's a very black and white world. Evil and goodness, dark and light, and that's it. And when you're told from the time you're born that you're inherently bad, and there's only one way that you can be good, that would be very traumatizing and abusive as a child to hear that your whole life. And then you grow up and then you find this guy who's basically feeds into all of these things that your hellfire and brimstone Baptist preacher or megachurch preacher beat into you, who also grifted off your family. It's familiar. It's comfortable. It's what these people know. But here is a clip of Trump at the same rally yesterday that is very telling.
People said that I was angry at the debate. Angry. I was angry. And yes, I am angry because he allowed 21 million illegal aliens invading our communities. Many of them are criminals. Many are criminals. I'm angry. I'm angry.
No shit, Sherlock.
Yeah.
Thanks, Captain Obvious. We all know you're angry. But again, here he is, a play out of Hitler's playbook, identifying a unifying source for everyone to hate. For the Nazis, it was the Jewish people. For MAGA Republicans, it's immigrants and then members of the LGBTQ plus community. They rally around, they get the biggest applause lines whenever he says transphobic statements, homophobic statements, or statements about immigrants. That is who they hate. And so to the Peter Thiels of the world, the billionaire who's a big MAGA supporter, if he wins, you're going to be one of the first on the chopping block. I mean, don't think for a second that they're going to excuse, once they get power, your homosexuality. That's not happening. This group of people and all of the sycophants that are surrounding him, I don't believe the people that are cheering in that audience can be reached. But I do believe that there are moderate voters in the electorate that know better. And those are the people that we have to challenge intellectually right now, the people in our personal lives that know better. Now, if your parents or sibling or friend is deeply a member of the cult, you're not going to resonate with them. They like this. They like that brand of hellfire damnation. They don't mind getting grifted. They're white supremacist. Sadly, there's nothing that can be done. But if you have people in your life that are reasonable people that are like, I don't know, I've just never voted for a Democrat, and I know that he's crazy, but his policies are good. These are the people that you have to challenge and say, do you not realize where he talks about these immigrants being criminals, that he's the criminal? Do you not remember January 6th? Do you have amnesia? Do you realize that when he owned Miss Universe, he brags about walking into dressing rooms where 18-year-olds are naked and how great that was? Yet that whole group calls the Democrats groomers when you have a groomer on the top of your ticket over there. So it's very alarming, the millions of people that follow him. And of the entire electorate, there's probably about 10%, I think, that can be reached. There's the rational sect of the electorate where it's just a no-brainer. And then you have the crazy sect of the electorate, as Hillary Clinton calls them, the basket of deplorables. But what we have to do is move that 10%.
Absolutely. And I think when I listen to him and the cheers he gets from his rallies, I think he is reaching inside and pulling out their rage. These Americans want to be mad. I would suspect moderate voters, they just want calm. They want politics to be boring. And even if you just think about his fraud cases against the state of New York, $500 million, he has been found He's been found liable in federal court unanimously by a jury for sexually abusing a woman. And there have been woman after woman after woman come out and talk about him sexually abusing her. He even admitted on tape he likes to grab him by the pussy. So how can someone that considers themselves a moderate then to come and say, well, I like his policies. His policies are misogynistic, sexist, racist, and homophobic. So if you are a moderate, you cannot support that in good conscience, in my head.
Well, here's what he does, and no analysis of a Trump rally would be complete if we didn't play the following clip.
By the way, taking Hispanic jobs, taking African American jobs, taking people that have been here a long time, citizens.
This is what he does to provide cover for racist white people. This is so manipulative. He says they're taking black jobs. Well, black people, as Michelle Obama viciously dunked on him during the DNC for saying this. Black people see that for inherently what it is. They see it that it is inherently a racist thing to say. But for white people, he provides cover for them. And he says they're taking black jobs. Then they're able to say, I'm not racist. I don't want immigration because I'm concerned about the blacks. The people he's talking about are the white people that refer to people as the blacks. And he provides cover in saying these things for them to be racist, for them to vote racist. And I think this is one of the more insidious and manipulative tactics that he's using. And he continues to use it despite being called racist for it, because it helps him with the moderate Republican voter that's been indoctrinated in a system of racism their entire life. Statements like that provide cover for them because then they think that they're advocating for black and brown people.
It's unbelievable because it is so offensive. When you hear him say that, I am deeply offended by his comments. It lessens people, but that's what his movement does. They marginalize people, they demean people, they belittle people. It is heartbreaking to me that kids are growing up seeing that as a presidential candidate, and all these morally high ground walkers are putting this in front of their child and saying, this is the example I want you to set. I want you to be cruel. I want you to be demeaning. I want you to be angry. It is I keep saying the word jaw-dropping. There's just no other word for it. It's shocking. It's offensive. It's gross.
To me, it's not that shocking. To me, it's not that jaw-dropping. This has been going on for 9 years. But prior to that, the Republican Party has stoked this for decades. He has just brought it to a boiling point. I mean, I have been a diehard political junkie forever. George W. Bush and Karl Rove put the gay marriage amendment on the ballot everywhere to get the family values voters to come out because they were so scared about gay people getting married. And back then they talked about the caravans and voter ID laws. This is just an extension. He's just more offensive with it. The Republican Party in my whole entire life has always been this cruel, even back to Reagan, towards the poor, towards the sick, towards people that need health care, towards gay people, towards black and brown people. This is the same song and dance forever. I mean, the only thing that is even remotely surprising about it is how much more brazen they've become. At some points, they would kind of check each other. George W. Bush tried to provide cover for himself by saying, "Oh, I'm a compassionate conservative," which was complete bullshit. But now Donald Trump is just like, "No, I'm a fuck you conservative. That's what I am. Fuck you, fuck your rights." But the language that he's using about these black jobs, and you know a lot of white racist people, and you know the cover that provides them. You know how it makes them feel okay to hear that. I know a lot of white racist people, and when they hear that, they think, "Oh no, I'm advocating for the blacks." We lived in this whole white world. He's providing these people cover, people that should know better. And that's the most insidious part of it. That's the saddest part about it, is because they're looking for an excuse to be hateful with their votes.
You're right. It's very, very sad.
All right. That's all we have for this week. Next week, we are going to be on the Reproductive Freedom Tour Bus with the Harris campaign, coming at you every day with daily drops in the battleground state of Pennsylvania. Kylie is going to post on all of our social medias where the stops are. We would love for our listeners and viewers in Pennsylvania to come to the rallies and join us so that we can take selfies and experience joy and march Kamala Harris and Tim Walz over the victory line in November. We will see you guys tomorrow.
It's so